Hey everybody and welcome back to Salty Salsa. This time, as the title says, we're doing a bit of a tutorial for Deep Rock Galactic. The new update's coming out soon, hopefully I get this out before then, and I wanted to do a tutorial for new players who might not, know all the ins and outs of the game, particularly in this video's case, the upgrades and how to build a weapon and what sort of builds you should look at and sort of how to do that. So right off the bat, this isn't just going to be telling you what builds are good. This is sort of what mindset you should look at when creating a build and what you should think about when you want to build something. Because you can actually make a lot of different builds work, despite what some people might say. There isn't just one single build that's best all of the time. If you put in the time and you learn the ins and outs and it matches your playstyle, any build can work really, as long as you're willing to put in the dedication to do so. So to get started, we're just going to run right over to the equipment terminal over here. You're going to be very familiar with this shortly once you start playing, but let's start by taking a look at my gunner and sort of break down some stuff. So here we are looking at this, and as you can tell, there's a lot of stuff going on here. We've got support tools over on the right side of the screen, and then the more important stuff on the left side of the screen. So the pickaxe, obviously very important. The flares, again, pretty important stuff to have. Then the weapons, again, also important. And these are sort of supplementary to help support this. Honestly, you can get by with just mostly the stuff here. I mean, your armor is helpful, but this stuff here is what's really important. So for this particular little tutorial I'm doing, we're going to ignore the bottom half of the screen, the bottom 4 items. So the basic pickaxe, the flare, the armor, and the grenade. We don't really need to worry about that, especially considering that you just have 3 grenades you can choose through. You don't have a build, you don't have upgrades for them. So we don't need to worry about them. We might look at these a little bit, but the support tools, since they're different for every class and since they all have sort of a lot of different upgrades, there's a lot of variety there. So we're mainly looking at the weapons, but I will touch on them a little bit just to give you some of an idea. So what we're going to look at here specifically is the minigun, just to get started. I'm actually going to run through what my build is here really quick, just to sort of explain some of the thought that went behind it, to give you an idea of what a thought, like the thought process should be. And sort of that involves how the weapon works. So I recommend that you play a bit and you understand the weapon and what sort of its goal is before you start making a build. With some classes that can be a bit more tricky than others, but just to sort of get an idea here. So first off, right off the bat, the minigun, it's good from medium range to long range. Not as good short range, but it's still pretty good. That's not to knock it short range. It's got some flaws long range too. Its sort of specialty is mid range. But right over here in my gear modifications, I right off the bat went for improved accuracy. Now, the reason I went for that is because when you start firing the gun, it takes a little bit of time for it to get more accurate. So I went with this to make it more accurate, and that sort of is the building block. Right here, these first upgrades that you see are sort of the foundation of where you want your weapon to go. That might seem kind of obvious, that the first couple of upgrades, but I will warn, they sort of are complementary. A lot of the upgrades, there's just straight up upgrades like higher damage, like this one here. But some of them work better with others. So you want to keep in mind which of these upgrades are going to work well together and going to synergize to help sort of build up the weapon and make it more impactful. So I went with improved accuracy and then improved damage. So since I'm missing less shots, when you go with the upgraded damage, that makes each of your bullets more valuable because each one of them is delivering more damage per shot. So you want to land them. If you're going with the damage upgrade, you want to make sure that you can hit your target. So that's why I sort of went with that. Then armor breaking rounds here. I went with these because I wanted to have a bit of flexibility. This is really good for dealing with some of the larger targets that you can encounter in the game. Most of the bigger bugs have heavy armor, and you will definitely want to be able to break that. And so I gave that upgrade because I really wanted to be able to sort of get through that armor and be dealing more damage to larger targets. This right here is another thing that a lot of weapons have, which I'll look at quickly here, but I'm going to get more into detail a bit later. they have this tendency to sort of split into whether you want to do single target damage or crowd control. Almost every weapon has a bit of that. Obviously, some are a little bit more direct than others at it, but that's one central focus that I think almost every gun has, whether you want to focus on single target damage or crowd control. And it's really important to keep in mind that you can do both. You don't have to only do one. So do not put yourself in something that's a little too niche. If you sort of build too specific, like if you're building a gun to kill one type of enemy, that's not really the sort of build that you want to be doing. There's actually another gun that's a great example of that, and I'll touch on it a bit later. But then I went with more damage after that, just to increase damage when fully stabilized. So this encourages me to fire more often, because you have to fire the gun for it to get fully stabilized to be more accurate. And so this does more damage when I'm at that full stabilization, so it encourages me to keep firing and to keep doing that. Then Cold as the Grave, every cool kills the gun, so that builds back into this here. So I want to be firing more, and every time I kill an enemy, it cools down the gun, which doesn't risk it overheating, which means I can continue to fire more, and it sort of creates a bit of a feedback loop. Obviously, it's not infinite. Then you have the overclocks here. Now, overclocks really can change how a weapon works. Mine didn't that much. I did greater damage with increased base spread, which makes this upgrade for the improved accuracy way more valuable. They sort of counterbalance each other a little bit here, and it helps to make this downside not as bad. So that's another thing. If you want to build for an overclock, which if you're a beginner, you're probably not going to even know what these are. You'll see that little icon and wonder what the heck's going on. That's totally fine. But you are going to learn a bit more later, and so you might want to build to whatever overclock you have. And so to do that, you need to look at the downsides, like this one. Can't move while shooting, can't stun targets. So what build is going to help me with that? You probably don't want this one because it increases stun duration, and since you can't stun targets anymore, that's not going to be helpful. So that is crossed off your list in terms of upgrades, and you want to keep going through that. Some will lower ammo. Let's see. That one increases ammo. Okay, yeah, the minigun doesn't have any, which is a bad gun to look at, but some of them do decrease ammo, so you can go get more ammo to counterbalance that if you want to build for a specific overclock. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, you have these green ones here, which are the clean overclocks, and they're just straight upgrades, so you cannot go wrong with them. So if you just want something to make your gun a little bit better, slap on one of these. You cannot go wrong with it, I promise. And yeah, that'll be actually, clean overclocks are really nice just to start off. Just if you like the build that you've got going and you don't want to change it too much, you can slap on a clean overclock, and that makes it way easier. Alright, so we're back here now at the main menu, and I'm going to touch on these two really quickly like I said I would. So in building for the tools, you kind of want to know how you use them. With my shield generator here, I made the generator recharge faster because I wanted to use my shield more often. I made it last longer, and I made it wider to help protect more teammates. So that's something that can be really useful. However, you can build it entirely differently. If you want to focus on protecting more teammates, you could go for this one here and have it be even bigger. And then maybe, let's say, these two sort of, or you could have it be the same size as before. These two sort of, I was going to say, can have the same value added. So if you get rid of one and then the other, it sort of doesn't change much. But if you want to have this wider area and then also have this special effect that makes the shield last longer when you go outside, you can have that as well. So that's what you want to build tools for. And mobility tools especially, you're going to encounter problems with pretty much every mobility tool when you start using them. For example, for me, I hate how short the angle that you can use the zipline is. So this is one of the first upgrades I got immediately, just because that was something that I found I was struggling with. Some guns or tools, actually more specifically tools, only have the one upgrade you can get in one column. And so just grab that. It's straightforward. You don't have any other choices, so that makes your life a lot easier. Alright, so we're back here looking at my gunner, but we're going to branch out and look at some of the other classes. And I mentioned a little bit about it before, but I'm going to talk about some more general points. So, most guns here, as you can see, have a wide variety of options to choose from. And as I mentioned a bit before, you're going to want to focus on either crowd control or single target damage. Here I've built for single target damage, but I could go for more ammo, which lets me shoot more bugs. I could go for a faster firing rate here. Again, makes it easier to get through those larger amounts of bugs. And just sort of all sort of stuff like that to go with and to focus on to help make it a bit easier. Like this one, killing an enemy increases accuracy. So if you want to keep accuracy increased for a long period of time, then this is what you do. You keep shooting at enemies to sort of go for that and to have that. I think the best example of the different builds you can go for actually is with the engineer, with the PLG or the grenade launcher. So here you have something that makes the damage faster, but you can also make the radius wider. So if you want to have higher damage in a single target, you go for this one. If you want to damage more, you go for that one. Then this one does more damage within the area of effect, so that actually partners really nicely with this one because it's a higher radius, and now that area damage is going to be higher as well. And of course you've got all sorts of stuff going on here. Deals direct damage on impact, so that's really good for single target stuff. So if you want to hit a big guy with a grenade and deal a lot of damage to that one guy, that is a really effective weapon. However, it can also be used to sort of hit a big guy that's surrounded by a lot of smaller guys, and that is really useful too for sort of multitasking. So like I said, the build can sort of go anywhere here, and it can sort of be used to do anything. And another thing too is there's a lot of variety that comes in here. The shotgun for the engineer is a really good example of that. See right here I've got a build that sort of rewards accuracy and patience with him. So I've got improved accuracy here, reduced base spread, and weapon damage bonus increase. Weak point damage bonus increase. So hitting the weak points is much more valuable to do. So it encourages me to stop, take my time, and fire a bit more often when I'm able to. And also here I've got increased damage, lower recoil so that it doesn't impede my aiming, and then the loaded shells so I do more damage, and then the supercharged feed mechanism so I fire faster. I could actually probably go with the overstuffed magazines here. That probably would be a bit better now that I'm thinking about it. But I like, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think I like to fire a bit faster. But this is where the overclocks come in. This gun does not have many overclocks, but I can promise you that these three right here change up the gun very significantly. The clean ones don't really, but these ones change it up a lot. So this one's going to be drastically reducing your damage, but you get a ton more ammo and you're able to fire way faster. So you are... Sorry, you're not able to fire faster, but you have less recoil. So that works really well with actually the minor adjustments, which makes the gun fully automatic. So going with this one is a really, really useful tool. If you find yourself wasting ammo a lot or your aim isn't that good, there's no shame in that. Just pop this bad boy in and you will be set for life. That's actually how I learned to practice, and then I went with this build. And I actually should probably change it up to make it work a bit better with this one. But anyways, then you have Cycle Overload, which is a faster rate of fire and greater damage, but increased base spread and longer reload time. So now it encourages you to just sort of blast. Trust me, you click fire once with the Cycle Overload, and you've already emptied your entire clip. It is really extreme, and you absolutely want to be very, very careful with your ammo count. So that is something that you really have to take into consideration when building for that. So this gun right here, very good example of how building for overclocks can really change it, and how you have a lot of possibility for different builds here. The driller also has a lot of capabilities for both his guns. As you can see, there's 4 different guns for you to choose from, and again, a lot of possibility here in these guns. So when building, all you want to keep in mind is sort of what your skill set is and what you want to go for and what you enjoy doing. I think that that's the most useful tip, actually. What do you enjoy doing? What is something that you have fun doing? So you're going to want to go ahead, sit down, and just sort of start working with it. And above all else, play with your new build and just try it out and see what you like about it, see what you don't like, what flaws it has. Because sometimes your build will just have flaws. That's the case with every single build, actually. The build's going to have flaws. That's just sort of a fact of life when it comes to this. Every gun has its own flaws. So is it something that can be overcome by just practicing more? Or maybe you just have to rely on your teammates. Actually, hopping back to the Scout. The M1000, very good example. This right here sort of builds it to be very singular. So as you can see, you can't move while focusing. You get a slower focus speed, significantly less ammo. So you really, really need to rely on your teammates when you're going for this build. However, you can use the shotgun to make up for it. You can use the Zhukovs to make up for it. So it's really up to you how you want to do that. And also, you can just rely on your teammates a bit more. That might sound like, not a great thing, but as long as you're doing what you're meant to be doing and you're contributing to the team in some way, it is okay to rely on your teammates. That's how it works. Every class has their flaws, and they need the other teammates to make up for it. The Scout overall isn't good at crowd control, but the Gunner is, and so is the Driller, and the Engineer has platforms that make the Scout's life easier. So it's very natural to rely on people in order to get stuff done. So don't ever think that you're a hassle just because you need to rely on your teammates. Just be careful, with your build. And again, don't build it too singular. And also don't try to build it too broad. I find a lot of the time if you go for a middle ground with some of your upgrades, then, you just end up not really having anything to do at all. Or at least you don't do anything great. You're kind of good at everything, but not great. So not too wide. And I guess one final point, too, is pay attention to the upgrades. If they work well with your overclocks, if they work well with each other. Sometimes they don't. Not every upgrade is going to work perfectly with every other upgrade. So make sure they're working together, and make sure your weapons work with each other above all else. So I hope this helps some people. I know it was a little bit ranty. I actually tried to make this video once before, and I ended up ranting for like a solid 30 minutes. My throat was killing me, and I was like going into super detail about every single weapon. So I love this game to death, and I can talk about it way too long. So hopefully this makes a bit more sense. Again, if it was too ranty, I apologize. If you have any questions and you'd like to know more, please ask me, or actually go to the Discord for Deep Rock Galactic. You can get access to it from the main page of the game. Or I'm pretty sure that you can find it on the Reddit somewhere for Deep Rock Galactic. So absolutely go there, and there are plenty of people who will be willing to talk to you and to help you out. We have a very good community here, and that's something I really want to encourage. So if that's something you're looking for and that's something you want to enjoy and be a part of, I absolutely recommend you come in, and I recommend you join in and just sort of look for help. And again, have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will be there, and I will respond to you and do my best to help you out and help you learn a bit more. So yeah, hopefully you can sort of go and enjoy that. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have yourself a great day.